One of my absolutely favorite qualities of the secular media is its tendency to take the hottest, most controversial label available and apply it to the enemies of the oligarchs, to the point that the label loses its meaning. We see this with the comparisons of ICE to the Ku Klux Klan. We see the use of the word racist to be used against anyone to the right of Hillary Clinton. We see this in the sliming of Christopher Columbus from the great hero of the Catholic faith that he was to a racist, slave-driving, rapist monster that has become synonymous with Adolf Hitler. This tendency, by not only the media, but secular educators, has real consequences as well, as evident with the riots against normal people done by groups like Antifa and other black bloc organizations. The media absolutely knows what they're doing when they do this, which is why the practice should be scary, except for the fact that almost no one trusts the secular media anymore. At least we hope. If you're a subscriber to this channel, then you know that traditional Catholics have long been opposed to the presence of same-sex attracted men in the priesthood. The Church has theology, canon law, and sacred scripture on its side when it bars these men from serving. But estimates are that up to 50% of the clergy are the same-sex attracted, and that half of those, meaning a full 25% of the American priesthood, are active in the so-called homosexual community. Traditional Catholics and others have objected to their presence in the clergy and have gotten a lot of hate from all quarters for this. On Sunday, this took on a whole new dimension as the stakes were suddenly raised. Already, some traditional Catholic organizations, such as the Society of St. Pius X, are on various secular left-wing hate groups' watch lists for repeating traditional Catholic Church teaching on sodomy and those who promote that lifestyle, as well as other groups that you can't even name without finding yourself on that kind of watch list. But now we're all alt-right. I know you're probably surprised because you might never have given much thought to the relationship between race and IQ, segregation, or other issues that some in the alt-right promote. But we're all alt-right now, according to NBC News. Before we dive into this article, let's make a list of all the things that will likely be used to smear traditional Catholics. Of course, there's the alt-right label itself. Second, I'm betting President Trump's name will probably get dropped somewhere in here, despite the president not being alt-right himself. Third, accusations of bullying, harassment, and other things that they make sound like terrorism done by traditional Catholics. And fourth, I'm betting Pastor Jimmy Martin of the Jesuit Church will probably appear somewhere in here. Did I miss anything? Let's dive into this hot mess. How the Catholic alt-right aims to purge LGBTQ members from the church. Websites like Church Militant, LifeSite News, and the Lepanto Institute are ratcheting up the rhetoric with personal attacks on supporters of gay Catholics. By Corky Semezco. It was published yesterday in the morning. The call for action against the forces of organized perversion, that's a great catchphrase, I'll have to remember it, landed in the inboxes of conservative Roman Catholics across the country just before Election Day. Have you had enough? Activist Randy Engel wrote in a column that first appeared on the conservative website RenewAmerica.com. Or will you wait until the homosexual collective's hobnail boot is pressed on the neck of your prone body or that of your child or grandchild before reacting? Randy Engel sure knows how to spin some words. That's actually fantastic. Cast your vote for God, family, and nation, she wrote. Many Catholics say they are worried that activists like Engel are the vanguard of a new offensive by ultra-conservative Catholic groups that see the growing acceptance of LGBTQ Catholics by Pope Francis and other reformers as a mortal threat to their church. That's because it is, but I might be biased because I am one of those ultra-conservative Catholics. Websites like Church Militant, LifeSite News, and the Lepanto Institute are ratcheting up the rhetoric while replacing polite and prayerful discourse with personal attacks on supporters of gay Catholics, they say. Meanwhile, anti-gay activists have increasingly been disrupting gatherings of acronym Catholics and their supporters, a phenomenon first reported by the National Catholic Reporter. Just this month, a group of Dominican nuns in suburban Milwaukee hired security guards to keep more than 24 anti-gay protesters off their property where they were hosting a retreat for gay clergy. Maybe the Dominican nuns should be doing things that are more orthodox instead of heterodox. Just a thought. Fordham University theologian Jason Steedle has coined a name for them. "I call them the Catholic alt-right," Steedle told NBC News. "We haven't seen anything like this before. I think they are part of a bigger cultural movement. These people have hitched their wagons to Trump's presidency, to his tactics." They've also tried to weaponize the Pennsylvania grand jury report, released in August, that named more than 300 predator priests to scapegoat homosexuals. Never mind that many of the 1,000 victimized children were girls. Yes, but the vast majority of them were teenagers and teenage boys. They inject fear, hatred, and homophobia into religious discourse, said Pastor Jimmy Martin of the Jesuit Church, and author of Building a Bridge, How the Catholic Church and the acronym community can enter into a relationship of respect, compassion, and sensitivity on the highway to hell. They use the same tactics as the political alt-right: lies, personal vilification, and demonization of minority groups, he said. Michael Voris, who heads Church Militant, rejected the label Catholic alt-right, calling it non-applicable and stupid. Nicely done, Mr. Voris. He said all they are doing is vocally defending their faith and seeing President Donald Trump as an ally. He once compared Trump to Constantine, the first Roman emperor to convert to Christianity. Voris agreed that conservative Catholics are more focused now on the LGBTQ community, but said it's because the news of the Pennsylvania grand jury report has certainly multiplied under Pope Francis. "I don't whip up crowds to stone them," he said. "We're not a bunch of Muslims in Saudi Arabia chopping people's heads off." Nice! But the gay lifestyle is a sin, Voris said, and he's speaking from personal experience. "I lived a gay lifestyle for a number of years," he said Voris, who said he is now celibate. Mike Hitchborn of the Lepanto Institute also bristled at the Catholic alt-right label. The Lepanto Institute does not stand for anything beyond the absolute and immutable teachings of the Catholic Church, Hitchborn wrote in an email. "That does not make us alt-right, but fully faithful." Maureen Duddy Burke, who heads the Dignity USA, a heterodox organization that focuses on gay rights within the Catholic Church, said these groups have been emboldened by Trump, who has legitimized attacks against entire groups of people, and these people are following his example to go after gay Catholics. There's no such thing as a gay Catholic, folks. And they're not just casting aspersions. Since 2007, the heterodox and thoroughly condemned by the Church New Ways Ministry has tracked 80 Catholic Church workers who say they lost their jobs after they were outed as gay or supportive of gays. As an aside, church organizations in the United States can hire and fire based on the adherence to the moral laws of God. It's their legal right to do so. If you don't believe me, go apply for a job with a Southern Baptist group and you're going to see a faith statement on their website. I guarantee it. Continuing. In some cases, they lost their jobs after Catholic alt-right activists scoured their social media postings for evidence and told their employers. On the group's website, there's a man who they say was fired by the Catholic Diocese of Cleveland after he liked a Facebook posting about a gay couple's wedding. They weren't married, and a Florida teacher who was pressured to resign after administrators at her Catholic high school learned she and her partner were engaged. Perhaps one of the most extreme examples of harassment was endured by Aaron Bianco, a gay man not married, to another man who told the New Ways Ministry that he resigned from his job at a San Diego parish as a pastoral minister after more than a year of abuse. Gay marriage is against Catholic social teaching. It's against the law of God. But let's continue. He said he received death threats, which is inappropriate, had his tires slashed, got hundreds of harassing letters, phone calls, and emails, and was physically attacked after a mass. And if that's true, those people who did that should be condemned. They broke into the office, rectory, and spray-painted anti-gay slurs on the conference wall, he wrote in an email to friends. Sure. The final straw, he said, was when LifeSite News and the Lepanto Institute published an article about him that included family photos and his address. It also called for San Diego Bishop Robert McElroy to fire Bianco. Probably 95% of Catholics are fine, Bianco said. The people in my parish are great. It's just these fringe groups that have been able to garner so much attention. The problem is no one has put them in check. That's an open call for censorship, by the way. Remember how the church is coming up with their list of approved Catholic media outlets. Keep all that in mind. Hitchborn denied outing Bianco and defended their coverage. He wrote that Bianco's sexuality was no secret and all we did was report those public facts. It's just as absurd for the Catholic Church to employ active homosexuals as it would be to employ a practicing witch, a practicing abortionist, a Freemason, or a communist, he wrote. Sodomy is completely inimical to the most basic teachings of the Catholic faith. And he's not wrong. NBC News also reached out to Canada-based LifeSite but got no response. Bianco said McElroy came to his defense and then found himself on the receiving end of abuse. But McElroy is the exception, not the rule, said Francis de Bernardo of New Ways Ministry. The U.S. bishops have done absolutely nothing to respond to the very vicious and violent ways these groups are threatening people, de Bernardo said. These are the things the bishops really should have been speaking out against, but they are afraid of these groups. Martin agreed. Some bishops promote sites like LifeSite, he said. I know some people read them in Rome. These groups are very small, but they have an outsized influence and a very, very big voice. Fear and hatred are remarkably motivating for some people. I'll let you read the rest of that website on your own. A link is in the description below. Wow, every single point I figured they'd hit, they in fact hit. Welcome to the alt-right, I guess. Though that label fits us as poorly as does the conservative label, because those are all materialistic ideologies, and what drives us as traditional Catholics is the love of the true Roman Catholic religion, as taught and defended by the Church before the modernists captured the Second Vatican Council and brought revolution into the Church. But this begs a question. Why is NBC News of all outlets doing this right now? What's going on right now that warrants NBC stepping into internal Catholic debates about sexual morality and spiritual fatherhood and stirring the pot? Oh, it's probably this story. Supich and Wuerl collaborated on alternative sex abuse proposal by Ed Condon. Cardinal Blaise Supich, who I ironically say is a friend of this channel, and Cardinal Donald Wuerl, thoroughly disgraced former Cardinal of Washington, collaborated extensively on a recently proposed policy for handling abuse allegations against bishops, CNA has learned. Supich submitted the plan Tuesday to the leaders of the U.S. Bishops' Conference, proffering it as an alternative to a proposal that had been devised by conference officials and staffers. The conference's proposed plan would have established an independent, lay-led commission to investigate allegations against bishops. The Supich-Wuerl plan would instead send allegations against bishops to be investigated by the metropolitan archbishops along with archdiocesan review boards. In other words, insiders. These are church insiders. This is the church investigating itself. God have mercy on us. Metropolitans themselves would be investigated by their senior suffragan bishops. Sources in Rome and Washington, D.C. told CNA that Wuerl and Supich worked together on their alternative plan for weeks and presented it to the Vatican's Congregation for Bishops before the U.S. Bishops' Conference Assembly in Baltimore. Supich and Wuerl are both members of the Congregation for Bishops. The Supich-Wuerl plan was submitted to the U.S. bishops even after a Vatican directive was issued Monday, barring U.S. bishops from voting on any abuse-related measures. The Vatican suspended USCCB policymaking on sexual abuse until after a February meeting involving the heads of bishops' conferences from around the world. You can bet that this is what they're going to be voting on in February, and this is going to be the policy that comes out, that the bishops will investigate themselves. An official at the Congregation for Bishops told CNA on Thursday that the substance of the plan presented by Supich at the Baltimore meeting is known in the congregation as Wuerl's plan. That should inspire a lot of confidence in everybody. The official would not confirm whether the congregation had received an advance copy of the document. Senior Chancery officials in Washington, D.C. described the plan presented Tuesday as a collaborative effort by the cardinals, telling CNA that Wuerl and Supich first informed the Congregation for Bishops several weeks ago about their idea for the metropolitan model to handle complaints against a bishop, and suggested they had continued to discuss the plan with congregation officials since that time. It was a mutual effort, one Archdiocese of Washington official told CNA. The idea of amending U.S. CCB policy so that allegations against a bishop would be handled by his metropolitan archbishop was first suggested by Wuerl publicly in August. While Supich played an active role in conference sessions this week and proposed the detailed plan for an alternative to the conference's special commission, Wuerl did not make any public comment on the plan, which at least some in Rome consider to be his, and which he first suggested in public 3 months ago. That would be in August, right around the time the Vigano documents dropped. Sources familiar with the behind-the-scenes discussion in Baltimore told CNA that World chose to step back from the plan's presentation, providing advice and counsel but not seeking to take public credit. A spokesman for World declined to comment on that decision. And I'll let you read more of that yourself on the CNA website. Link is in the description. Yes, the very same men who have sent good, faithful priests to mental hospitals that treat pedophiles for the crime of burning blasphemous symbol of the Bay Area lifestyle, the same men who covered up for sexual predators like Archbishop McCarrick, the same men who personally benefited from the position of power McCarrick held, I'm looking at you, Cardinal Supich, are now going to write up new rules governing how the church addresses abusive priests and bishops. This ought to go over really well. Honestly, these guys think we're all stupid, and it doesn't help that for a fact we know that most Catholics know little, if anything, about the current scandal in the church, or the greater crisis stemming from the modernist heresy. A lot of lay faithful will see LifeSite, Church Militant, and the Lepanto Institute in that article and take it at face value instead of asking critical questions or even checking out those websites or ones like them to see if they are actually inflammatory. And it doesn't help that something like 90% of Catholics are contracepting, and that half vote for Moloch-worshipping abortionist politicians. There's a big reason that the USCCB gets away with this kind of garbage. Or even worse, the new dumpster fire of a pastoral letter they released against racism, which I won't even bother reading. If you want to read it, just go to the USCCB website. Wouldn't it be nice if the church actually promoted the authentic gospel and not the values of the world? Wouldn't it be nice if we heard that 2 cardinals of the church were writing a document to address corruption and we would be happy instead of dreading what they'll release? It's enough to make you wonder what's going on. Just remember to keep praying for the church and only give your money to trustworthy, faithful organizations and lay apostolates. At this point, the Vatican can't be trusted with your funds, and neither can the USCCB. I'll leave you with this thought. I was quite pleased when at Mass yesterday, the second collection for the Catholic Campaign for Human Development went out and the baskets came back almost completely empty. That made me very happy. But then again, I go to Mass at an FSSP parish, and the people there are far more aware of how bad things are than the typical Catholic is at the typical diocesan parish. They, just like you, are paying attention. Keep paying attention, and keep praying for deliverance. If you like videos like this, like and share this video and subscribe, and click that notification bell below. You can support my work if you want to through Patreon. A link is found in the description below, along with links to my Twitter, the blog, and the Facebook page I manage. For Return to Tradition, I'm Anthony Stein. Ave Maria.